A Titanic tourist submarine has gone missing and a rescue operation is underway. The submarine, which can hold up to 5 people, tours the wreckage of the Titanic for $250,000 per person. The U.S. Coast Guard launched a search and rescue operation Monday for a submarine that went missing during an expedition to the wreckage of the Titanic. Our entire focus is on the crew members in the submersible and their families, OceanGate said in a statement. We are deeply thankful for the extensive assistance we have received from several government agencies and deep-sea companies in our efforts to re-establish contact with the submersible, it added. The company bills the 8-day trip on its carbon fiber submersible as a chance to step outside of everyday life and discover something truly extraordinary. According to its website, 1 expedition is ongoing and 2 more have been planned for June 2024. The submersible usually carries a pilot, 3 paying guests, and what the company calls a content expert. As a safety feature, the sub uses a proprietary real-time hull health monitoring (RTM) system that analyzes the pressure on the vessel and the integrity of the structure, the company states. It also has life support for a crew of 5 for up to 96 hours. There is now an update in the case of the missing submarine that went to explore the Titanic. Banging sounds were heard Tuesday during the search for the missing Titan submersible, indicating continued hope of survivors, according to an internal government memo. A massive search operation is underway to find the vessel with 5 people on board that went missing Sunday on a trip to view the wreckage of the Titanic. It's a race against time, as the U.S. Coast Guard said the vessel had about 40 hours of breathable air left during an update at 1 p.m. ET Tuesday. Crews searching for the Titan submersible heard banging sounds every 30 minutes Tuesday, according to an internal government memo update on the search. 4 hours later, after additional sonar devices were deployed, banging was still heard, the memo said. It was unclear when the banging was heard Tuesday or for how long, based on the memo. A subsequent update sent Tuesday night suggested more sounds were heard, though it was not described as banging. Additional acoustic feedback was heard and will assist in vectoring surface assets and also indicating continued hope of survivors, according to that update. A Canadian P-3 aircraft also located a white rectangular object in the water, according to that update, but another ship set to investigate was diverted to help research the acoustic feedback instead, according to that update. The Joint Rescue Coordination Center is working to find an underwater remote-operated vehicle to help assist in the search, according to the memo. The passengers on the missing Titanic submersible are most likely wearing this survival suit in their final hours. The only training the passengers received was how to get into a survival suit, according to Rice, a previous passenger on the same missing vessel. The Submarine Escape Immersion Equipment, SEIE, is a whole-body suit and one-man life raft that was first produced in 1952. It was designed by British company RFD Beaufort Limited and allows submariners to escape from a sunken submarine. The suit also provides protection against hypothermia. The suit allows survivors to escape a disabled submarine at depths down to 600 feet, 183 m, escapee dry and protected from cold shock during ascent, and to provide buoyancy, freeboard, and thermal insulation at the surface. The SEIE is designed to be a last resort in the event of a submarine emergency at sea. Reduced risk of decompression sickness, oxygen toxicity, carbon dioxide toxicity, and nitrogen narcosis is dependent on a relatively high rate of pressurization and ejection from the escape lock, as all of these hazards are time-dependent.
Finally, Coast Guard regulations require immersion suits to be marked with the name of the vessel or the owner of the suit. Ask your immersion suit manufacturer for the type of marking ink they recommend. Immersion suits should be inspected at least once each.
The wife of Stockton Rush, the pilot of the missing Titanic tour submarine, is actually the great-great-granddaughter of 2 first-class passengers who died on the Titanic, records show. A fictionalized version of the couple is even featured in the movie.
We've been together for 40 years, and where you go, I go.
Miss Rush's ancestors on the Titanic are perhaps best known for their tragic love story. Survivors of the disaster recalled seeing Isidore Straus refuse a seat on a lifeboat when women and children were still waiting to flee the sinking liner. Ida Straus, his wife of 4 decades, declared that she would not leave her husband, and the two were seen standing arm in arm on the Titanic's deck as the ship went down. Miss Rush is a great-great-granddaughter of the retailing magnate Isidore Straus and his wife Ida, 2 of the wealthiest people aboard the Titanic for its first voyage. Mr. Straus, born in 1845, was a co-owner of Macy's department store. Her LinkedIn page says that she has participated in 3 OceanGate expeditions to the Titanic wreckage in the last 2 years, that she serves as the company's communications director. Here's the latest updates on the missing Titanic submarine. The oxygen supply of 96 hours on the Titanic tourist submarine is now estimated to have ran out. The 5 passengers on board the missing submersible may have been able to conserve oxygen and make the vessel's limited reserves of breathable air last longer, medical experts have said. The rescue operation passed the crucial 96-hour mark when breathable air was expected to run out at around midday on Thursday, according to the U.S. Coast Guard. The Victor 6000 has finally reached the ocean floor. The French robot is the best hope of finding and rescuing the 5 people trapped inside a lost submersible which disappeared while attempting to visit the Titanic shipwreck, experts believe. However, hopes of a rescue are fading as more time is needed to survey the miles of Atlantic Ocean where the sub may be, which could take weeks of intense searching. It remains unknown if the vessel is at the bottom of the ocean or on the surface, and rescuers do not know if it is intact or has been destroyed. But experts say that the 96-hour estimate is likely inaccurate and could be extended if, providing they are still alive, the passengers' halves taken measures to use up less oxygen. The head of the search operation for the Titan submersible confirmed the initial reports, suggesting the noise heard by sonar buoys was background ocean noise. Rear Admiral John Mauger told Sky News, "We've taken that information and shared it with top leading experts from the U.S. Navy and the Canadian Navy, and they're working on the analysis of that information. They're continuing to work on the analysis of that information. The initial reports is that there's a lot of the sounds that were generated were from background ocean noise, but they continue to look for all available information there." He added, "What's important to me, and what's important as the unified command, is that we've continued search in the areas where noise was detected with the ROVs that we have from the time of that detection. So we're not waiting for this analysis to take action. The analysis is really helpful to our overall search and rescue efforts, but we're not waiting on it. We've moved the remote-operated vehicles that we've had on site to those areas where noise was detected." The head of the search operation for the missing Titan submersible has said that it is still an active search and rescue right now, despite U.S. Coast Guard estimates that the U.S. Coast Guard has issued a major update reporting that a debris field was discovered in the search area near the Titanic. Debris found would mean that the vessel had imploded and all of the 5 passengers were liquefied and died on impact. The U.S. Coast Guard has said a debris field was discovered within the search area by a remotely operated vehicle, ROV, near the Titanic wreck. Earlier, the Coast Guard said the search and rescue operation was still active. It confirmed the French deep-sea robot Victor 6000 has been deployed. Meanwhile, the Canadian vessel Horizon Arctic has also deployed its own ROV that is on the seafloor. Experts are said to be evaluating the information, and an update will be given at 8 p.m. UK time. Sky's U.S. correspondent James Matthews says that while the details about the debris have not been confirmed, it doesn't look good. Speaking from Boston, he says, "Frankly, the use of the word debris does not sound good at all. In a situation and at a depth where the water pressure is huge, it can do considerable damage to vessels. So should the worst have happened, and we don't know if that's the case yet, and that vessel was broken up somehow by the pressures at that depth, then the word debris would absolutely fit that worst case scenario. It doesn't sound good, it reads in a very dark way. The detail presumably will be fleshed out in time, and indeed they are still analyzing what has been found. But the details are yet to be confirmed. We don't know what that debris is. That will be confirmed in due course, but it doesn't look good." It is now being confirmed by Sky News reports that the debris found is from the Titan submersible, including the sub's landing frame and a rear cover. A rescue expert says the debris found in the search for Titan was a landing frame and a rear cover from the submersible. David Mearns, who is friends with 2 of the passengers on board Titan, says he is part of a WhatsApp group involving the Explorers Club. Mr. Mearns told Sky News the president of the club, who is directly connected to the ships on the site, said to the group it was a landing frame and a rear cover from the submersible. Mr. Mearns says, "Again, this is an unconventional submarine. That rear cover is the pointy end of it, and the landing frame is the little frame that it seems to sit on." He says this confirms that it is the submersible. Mr. Mearns says he knows both British billionaire Hamish Harding and the French sub-pilot Paul-Henri Nargeolet. "It means the hull hasn't yet been found, but 2 very important parts of the whole system have been discovered, and that would not be found unless it's fragmented," he added. Mr. Mearns also spoke about the fairing of the submarine, shaped like a fishtail, and said, "If the fairing is off and the frame is off, then something really bad has happened to the..." Sadly, we have a tragic update. U.S. Coast Guard confirm all 5 passengers aboard missing Titan submersible are dead. The Coast Guard confirmed the Titan submersible imploded near the wreckage of the Titanic. The debris is consistent with a catastrophic loss of the pressure chamber, he says. Upon this determination, we immediately notified the families on behalf of the United States Coast Guard and the entire Unified Command. I offer my deepest condolences to the families. Carl Hartsville of the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution says the wreck lies approximately 1,600 feet from the Titanic. That area does not have any debris of Titanic, he says. It is a smooth bottom there. To my knowledge and anything I've seen, there's no Titanic wreckage in that area. The debris found of the Titan sub lies 200 plus meters from the bow of the Titanic wreck, he says. It's consistent with the location of last communication for an implosion in the water column. We will do our best to fully map out what's down there. As the Coast Guard confirmed that a catastrophic loss of the pressure chamber resulted in the 5 people dying aboard the submersible, Mauger added that it's unclear when the vessel imploded. Right now it's too early to tell, he said on Thursday. These men were true explorers who shared a distinct spirit of adventure and a deep passion for exploring and protecting the world's oceans, said Andrew Von Kerens on behalf of OceanGate. Our hearts are with these 5 souls and every member of their families during this tragic time. This is a very sad time for the entire explorer community and for each of the family members of those lost at sea, the statement said. The 19-year-old boy was terrified before the Titanic submarine, but he wanted to make his father happy for Father's Day weekend. Azmeh Dawood, the older sister of Pakistani businessman Shahzada Dawood, said her nephew was reluctant to go on the Titan expedition. In the days before the Titan vessel went into the ocean off the coast of Newfoundland, Canada, the 19-year-old university student accompanying his father on the expedition expressed hesitation about going, his aunt said Thursday in an interview. Her nephew, Suleiman, informed a relative that he wasn't very up for it and felt terrified about the trip to explore the wreckage of the Titanic. But the 19-year-old ended up going aboard OceanGate's 22-foot submersible because the trip fell over Father's Day weekend and he was eager to please his dad, who was passionate about the lore of the Titanic, according to Azmeh. I am thinking of Suleiman, who is 19 in there, just perhaps gasping for breath. It's been crippling, to be honest. She was devastated on Thursday when OceanGate, the company behind the Titan expedition, confirmed that all 5 passengers aboard were presumed dead. The U.S. Coast Guard said that debris in the search area was consistent with a catastrophic implosion. I feel disbelief, Azmeh said, speaking through sobs. It's an unreal situation. The last 4 days were agonizing for Azmeh. She was glued to television news coverage of the hunt for the Titan, desperate for updates about her brother and nephew. Just like on the Titanic, whose crew were warned about the iceberg fields but ignored those warnings, the OceanGate founder, Stockton Rush, who was also in the submersible, was warned about the potentially catastrophic outcome of ignoring safety concerns years before his Titan submersible was reported lost during a dive to visit the wreckage of the RMS Titanic. David Lockridge, former OceanGate employee and submersible pilot, filed a lawsuit against the company in 2018, alleging that passengers were being subjected to potential extreme danger in an experimental submersible due to OceanGate's refusal to conduct critical, non-destructive testing of the experimental design of the hull. The lawsuit from Lockridge also alleged that Titan's viewport, the sole window on the submersible, had only been certified to withstand pressure of 1,300 meters of depth. The Titanic wreckage is around 3,800 meters under the ocean's surface. The suit was later settled out of court. During the same year, the Manned Underwater Vehicles Committee of the Marine Technology Society sent a letter to Rush, warning the CEO that his refusal to allow an outside entity to test the safety of his vessel was ignoring a critical component in the safeguards that protect all submersible occupants, according to a copy of the letter obtained by the New York Times. The letter, which was reportedly signed by more than 36 experts in the field, alleged that Rush was misleading his potential customers over the safety of the experimental submersible and breaching an industry-wide professional code of conduct by refusing tests to meet the safety standards of marine classification societies like DNV or ABS. Yes. Rush also touted the benefits of breaking the rules. Rush stated that when the vessel reached the Titanic, they would hear crackle from the pressure. Since the Titan imploded, the passengers were most likely aware it was their final moment.
And when we go to the Titanic, it will squeeze in about 3/4 of an inch. It just deforms. The acrylic's great because it squeezes in, and before it cracks or fails, it starts to crackle. And so you get huge warning.
This submarine story just hurts my soul so much, especially because I can only imagine how terrifying it must be, being stuck on the bottom of the ocean in a small vessel where you can't even stand up. There are no seats and only one toilet, a small black box with a black curtain drawn across for privacy. All passengers are barefoot and must sit on the floor. Also, the fact that experts are saying there is no way of rescuing the crew if the tiny craft is still thousands of feet under the sea, because the technology required doesn't exist. Apparently on Tuesday, they heard banging sounds in 30-minute intervals. This would mean that they are still alive. A lot of fears were that the vessel had imploded. So that means the vessel must be stuck on the ocean floor. This submarine is designed to float to the surface when something goes wrong, and it hasn't done that, so they're stuck. But what is it stuck under? It could be stuck inside of the Titanic. They may have went directly inside of the rusted ship, and who knows? What if the Ocean Gate vessel caused the Titanic to collapse? What if the banging sounds were the Titanic falling apart? I'm just assuming here. But it could also be floating at the surface. In that case, Starlink should be able to locate them. So it seems most likely they are stuck below. Food and water are the least of their worries right now. It is thought that if the vessel had the full 96 hours worth of oxygen when it went down, it would run out at around 11 a.m. on Thursday, June 22nd morning. There are only 35 hours left for the people missing in a submarine to be found alive and with oxygen, according to U.S. authorities. Rescuers trying to find a submersible that disappeared on a dive to the wreckage of the Titanic are not only racing the clock as the sub's oxygen supplies dwindle, they are also battling a harsh and unforgiving environment more akin to outer space than most places on Earth. It's pitch black down there, it's freezing cold, the seabed is mud, and it's undulating. You can't see your hand in front of your face. Historian and Titanic expert Tim Malton said in an interview with NBC News Now, "It's really a bit like being an astronaut going into space. The sub is controlled by a gaming controller, that it uses construction pipes as ballasts, and that Ocean Gate CEO Stockton Rush bought some of its light fixtures from Camping World. There isn't even enough room to stand." It's revealed later in the report that the sub navigates to the Titanic wreck based on text messages from the surface ship using Starlink. The missing submersible, that costs $200,000 per person, could be stuck on the ocean floor or bobbing on the surface. Even if the vessel is bobbing at the surface, finding it would be a needle in a haystack. The vessel the size of a van will be even harder to spot if it is partially submerged. Plus, the vessel has 17 bolts, making it impossible to be opened from the inside. The vessel's oxygen supply will run out early on Thursday, according to Ocean Gate. If the craft is on the ocean floor, it would be nearly impossible to rescue, experts say. If the submersible is on the ocean floor, experts say that a sub-to-sub rescue is unlikely. Only a handful of submersible craft exist that could reach the depths of the Titanic wreck. Even if they could reach it, submersibles do not have the power to tow the missing vessel up to the surface. A man who visited the Titanic wreckage in the same submersible that is now missing in the Atlantic has revealed the jarringly extensive waiver passengers were forced to sign before going on the expedition. Among the paperwork shown to potential passengers was a waiver which stated, "This experimental vessel has not been approved or certified by any regulatory body and could result in physical injury, emotional trauma, or death." He added, "This is not to say it's a shoddy ship. It's just all new technology and they're learning it as they go along. You have to remember the early days of the space program, or the early days aviation, where you make a lot of mistakes on the way to figuring out what you're doing." Unlike submarines that leave and return to port under their own power, submersibles require a ship to launch and recover them. The writer said when he boarded the boat which takes passengers to the Titanic, a list is given to passengers which reveals they might not return from the trip. The only training Mr. Rice received before the trip was how to get into a survival suit. Beautifully designed inside, it feels sort of like a waiting room at a spa, quiet and comfortable. The descent took about 2.5 hours. "The sub is very, very simple," Mr. Rice said. "You basically push it in the water and it sinks like a stone. So it hits bottom and then you sail around and you're sort of powered by engines that look like desktop fans." He found the journey so peaceful that he fell asleep. The sub is operated using a video game controller. "It's not high-tech," Mr. Rice noted, adding that on his trip, when they hit the ocean floor, the sub was only 500 yards away from the wreckage, where it has laid since the 12th of April 1912. "But we didn't know where and the compass stopped working," Mr. Rice told the paper. "We spent about 90 minutes just hunting around trying to find the Titanic, but it's just so dark down there." They stumbled on the wreckage with only 20 minutes left to look at the ship. That's just the luck of the draw. That's what you got. And you're at the mercy of weather and water and technical problems, Mr. Rice noted. The porthole to look at the ship is only slightly larger than a washing machine door. It's a very tiny vessel in a very big ocean, he added. It is built to go where no other vessel to go, so if it's stuck on the bottom of the ocean, I can't foresee a way